Hi, and welcome to Ridge Theory. In this video, we'll start exploring the concept of scales, and we'll answer two questions. One, what is a scale? And two, how do we decide which notes go into a scale? You've probably been practicing some kind of scale already, whether it's your chromatic scale or some kind of major scale. But what makes that a scale? Well, a scale is any group of notes that's played together in either ascending or descending pitch order, which means that this is a scale. That group of notes was played in ascending order. We can take the same group of notes and play a descending scale by starting from the top and going down, like this. Some scales have fewer notes, like this one. And some scales have more notes, like this one. But they're all scales because the pitches move only in ascending or descending order. The answer to the second question is a little more complicated. How do we decide which notes go into scales? In order to answer that question, we have to talk about another concept, and that's called an interval. And an interval is the name for the distance between two notes. Scales are grouped not by just the individual notes that are played within the scale, but also by the order of intervals that is played as the notes change. I'll demonstrate what I mean using two of the most common intervals, which just so happen to be the two smallest intervals, the half step and the whole step. It's easy to see half and whole steps on the piano because of the way the keyboard is laid out. A half step describes the interval between one note and the note immediately next to it. If I start on C and play C sharp next to it, I'm playing the interval of a half step. If I play from C up to D, I'm playing two half steps, C to C sharp to D. This is also called a whole step. C to C sharp is a half step. C to D is a whole step. You'll see there are two places where there are two white keys next to each other, from E to F and from B to C. These are also the interval of a half step because they're notes right next to each other. Now I'll play the C major scale. The name of the scale gives you two important pieces of information. One, that it starts on the note C. Two, that it is a major scale. And a major scale is a group of scales that all have the same order of intervals played between the notes. I'll play it again, and you'll notice that I'm using only white keys. This is because C major has no sharps and no flats. Let's analyze the intervals played between each of the notes. Starting on C, we then move to D. We already discovered that this is a whole step because I've played two half steps. From D to E now. Another whole step. You can see there are two half steps. Now up to F, this is one place where two white keys, two natural notes, are right next to each other. Another, well, this is a half step, E to F, which means the first four notes of the major scale all have the intervals whole step, half step. Moving on up the major scale, we move from F to G, whole step, G to A, whole step, A to B, another whole step, and then from B to C, our other half step between two natural notes. This means the order for the entire scale is whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, We can use this order of intervals as a kind of formula to start on any other note and create another major scale. Let's start on F this time. Do you remember the order? Whole step, half step, which means we'll be playing B flat this time instead of B natural. Whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. I'll play the two scales back to back, and you'll hear that they sound similar. The scale starting on F had the same intervals as the scale starting on C, even though I played different notes, the B flat instead of the B natural. That's why we call this the F major scale. Because the intervals are ordered the same. Let's review. We learned that a scale is a group of notes played in either ascending or descending pitch order. We also learned that what defines these scales is not just the notes played, but the distance between each note as they're played. This distance is called an interval. And we learned about two of these intervals, the half and the whole step, and used them to create a very specific kind of scale, the major scale. The formula we used was whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Now that you know what a scale is and how to create one kind of scale, use this to create some major scales on your own. We started on F and C. Pick a different note on your own and create your own major scales.